Hello and welcome back. Today we are starting the first of our anatomy physiology chapters. This chapter is chapter 29, Fundamentals of Animal Function. So let's not waste any time and get started. Animals are heterotrophs. This means that they eat organic matter that is produced by other organisms, such as plants. This organic matter is a source of energy for the animal. Autotrophs, such as plants, obtain energy from inorganic sources such as the sun. When an animal consumes energy, it is converted to heat. The heat cannot do physiological work and must be replaced. Metabolic rate is the rate of energy consumption. Animals with higher metabolic rates need to find and eat a lot of food to replace energy that is being consumed. Likewise, animals with lower metabolic rates have lower food needs. Metabolic rates can be measured by determining the rate of oxygen consumption. When organic matter is oxidized during aerobic metabolism, as we learned during cellular respiration, oxygen consumption means that heat is made in a one-to-one relationship. Physical activity increases metabolic rate. In humans, metabolic rate increases linearly as running speed increases. In fish, metabolic rate increases exponentially because resistance posed by water increases exponentially. In birds, in flight at low speed, metabolic rate is high to stay airborne. Figure 29.2 illustrates what was just mentioned on the previous slide and is looking at oxygen consumption with speed. Speed is our proxy for physical activity. As you see with humans, metabolic activity increases in a nice linear line as speed increases. In fish, it increases exponentially because of the resistance to water. In birds, metabolic rate is high at low speeds, just so that they stay airborne. Basal metabolic rate, or BMR for short, is the minimum rate of energy used in the awake but resting animal. BMR is measured when an animal is in a comfortable thermal environment and has not eaten recently. There is a scaling relationship with animal BMR in relation to body size. BMR per gram of body weight decreases as animal size increases. This means that small mammals need much more food per gram of body weight than large animals do. The graph on this slide shows the scaling relationship between basal metabolic rate and body mass. We see that larger animals such as a horse or elephant have lower BMR as per gram of body weight than a lab rat or pygmy mouse. However, this also means that smaller animals require more food per body weight as they consume oxygen at a higher rate. Okay, here's our first progress check. Please take your time to answer these questions. Move on with lecture when ready. Next concept that we're going to look at are metabolic rates in relation to internal regulation. Animals need a way to regulate their internal environment. Regulation occurs when the internal environment stays constant, even as the external environment changes. Animals that maintain constant internal conditions, such as temperature, are referred to as regulators. Conformers are animals that have their internal environment vary to match the external environment. An example of these types of animals would be a frog or a fish. On this slide we have two graphs with internal temperatures on the y-axis and external temperatures on the x-axis. An example of temperature regulation is on the left. You can see that this animal's internal temperature stays the same despite the external temperature. On the right, you have an example of temperature conformity. This animal's internal temperature is changing to match the external environment. Animals that regulate their internal environment, such as us, provide stability, but the stability comes at an energetic cost. These animals have increased metabolic rates. Conforming to the external environment is energetically cheap, but the animal cells must be able to cope with changes in their environment. Animals that are regulators or conformers do this in order to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to the stability of an animal's internal environment and the mechanisms that maintain it. Homeotherms are animals that maintain a constant body temperature. This is sometimes referred to as thermoregulation. Birds and mammals fall into this category. The thermoneutral zone, or TNZ, is a range of external temperatures in which metabolic rate is minimal, does not change with external temperature. The thermoneutral zone is illustrated in this graph. The moose is a homeotherm. It will regulate its internal temperatures within a range. If the range becomes too extreme, however, the animal will lose the function to regulate their internal environment and possibly die. Most animals are what are referred to as poikilotherms, or sometimes referred to as ectotherms. This means their body temperatures are variable and are determined by the external temperature. Poikilotherms vary in their body temperature limits. Some examples of poikilotherms are lizards and shrimp. They let the environment dictate their internal temperature. When external temperatures rise, body temperature of poikilotherm rises exponentially. Poikilotherms often exert some control of their body's temperature by means of behavior, such as by positioning themselves in the sun or in shade. Here in figure 29.6, we see that as the external temperature increases, the metabolic rate of this frog rises exponentially, because a frog is a poikilotherm and uses the environment to regulate its internal temperature. Here's an example of a poikilotherm, a lizard, using behavior to change its temperature. By placing itself in the sun and shade, it can maintain a variable but constant internal temperature throughout the day. Usually, rates of homeotherms are higher than poikilotherms, especially when temperatures are low. Homeotherms have higher food needs because of this. To illustrate the previous point on the last slide, you can see the rabbit at the top of this graph has higher metabolic needs when it's colder. This is because it needs a higher metabolism to maintain its internal environment in cold conditions. Homeotherms have mechanisms to increase metabolic rate when external temperatures are low, such as shivering. Shivering is contracting skeletal muscles, and energy is converted from ATP to heat. In hot environments, homeotherms must increase the rate of heat loss. This is often done by evaporative cooling, which is using water, often in the form of sweat, to absorb heat energy so that it may escape the body. Alright, there you have it. That is the difference between homeotherms and poikilotherms and how they regulate their body. So here's the last progress check for this chapter. Please take your time with it and let me know if you have any questions on the material. Thank you for listening and have a good rest of your day.